Look, I don't want to rain on anyone's parade, but we're not going back to Afghanistan, despite these ridiculous headlines today that a lot of people fell for what it's worth. Today, I'm going to try to channel my inner Ryan Macbeth to show you exactly how this story was made up. I don't know why they made it up, but we're going to kind of backtrack to show where everything came from. So let's go ahead and share the screen here. This was the first one that popped up on my feed today. Dan Holloway, I don't know this gentleman. I'm not familiar with him. He just shared the article here, right? So the United States is taking Bagram Airbase back from the Taliban at the Taliban's request. I have confirmed this article's content and that the deployment will be announced publicly later this week. All right, so it's a matter of just taking his word at this point. But I thought what we should probably do is dig into the article to see what it actually says and the authenticity of that. Now, one of the challenges over on X, things just spiral out of control and outlets pick them up. So we saw Mario Nawfal, which is a major account over there, 2 million followers, publish the same thing. Hey, we're heading back. The Taliban already gave it back to us. Good news, right? Now, fortunately, this one didn't get a ton of views, but he did source OSINT Defender here, so we'll go over to his post. Same thing. You know, hey, look, according to Hama Press, and we're going to come back to that in a second because this is just a fabricated article. Anyways, they say C-17s are landing. We've got senior officials showing up in Bagram. This is a done deal. U.S. is back, baby. Going back to Bagram. Now, fortunately, this one caught a community note, and that article is actually something we're going to point to here in a second. But let's go back to the original article, right? The one that Mr. Holloway here pointed to and said, this article, genuine, I confirmed. So we clicked in. It's on Medium. All right, so like you or I could publish on Medium. That doesn't mean that it's automatically wrong, but this didn't necessarily go through any sort of editorial process before it was pushed out there. And we're going to get into the author here in a second, but this is the article that suggests that we're going back to Afghanistan. So the contents here, he says, in a surprising development with significant geopolitical ramifications, the Afghan Taliban has reportedly handed over control of Bagram Air Base to the United States. Sources on the ground confirm that U.S. C-17 Globemaster aircraft have landed at the base, carrying military vehicles, equipment, and senior intelligence personnel. We're going to be able to disprove that here in a second. They say, according to unverified reports, seems like maybe we should have led with that headline, right? One of the aircraft is believed to have transported the deputy chief of the CIA, underscoring the potential intelligence and strategic importance of this renewed presence at Bagram. Now, there was a hostage release like last week or the week before, so it's not entirely impossible that American aircraft were flying into Bagram. It didn't necessarily have to be a C-17, major, large military transport, but the idea that American aircraft have been in there recently wouldn't be all that shocking based off of recent news. But look, I've got this, not familiar with this guy either, and this is part of the issue here, is all of these news sources, it's constantly like, I don't know who that is. That doesn't mean anything good or bad right out the gate, but it's hard to understand the authenticity, the credibility of some of these sources if you've never heard of them. So we dig in a little bit here, and on his Medium page, Zark Shabab, he's got a handful of articles. We're going to come back and take a look at some of those here in a second because one of them was just published a couple hours ago, kind of a follow-up, and that's where you're going to really see this kind of laundering of information, if you will. But I thought, hey, let's go over and check out his profile on X. Maybe he's got some more information there, but that account doesn't exist, which, look, we all make mistakes when it comes to LinkedIn. I've probably got some broken links somewhere on my different pages, so let's not write it off entirely. But I've got this other article that he posted here that he followed up on. And he said, Taliban hands over Bagram Air Base to U.S. Remember, this is saying like it happened. This is a done deal. And this is where we really start to see this go off the rails. So he says, the Taliban has transferred control of Afghanistan's strategic Bagram Air Base to the United States, marking a significant development in regional military dynamics, media reports said. All right, so we don't have a direct source still. He says a U.S. C-17 aircraft recently landed at the base, bringing military vehicles, equipment, and senior intelligence officials, reported Hama Press, quoting Medium. All right, so we've got a few more pieces that we can kind of unpack here. I thought let's head over to Hama Press. They're regularly talking about Afghanistan. It's an area they cover. I'll try to make this a little bit bigger. I know the text is kind of small on the screen here. But right out the gate, the Hama Press one, I can see that it's kind of falling off with what I'm sharing, but all of this will be linked in the description. The only reference to this that Hama even has is saying that the Taliban denies reports of the Bagram airfield handover to the United States. And when we get down into the text of this article, the Medium article that they cite, according to a report by journalist Zarq Shabab on Medium, the Taliban has allegedly handed over control of Bagram Air Base to the United States. U.S. military aircraft, including a C-17, reportedly landed at the base, delivering military equipment and senior intelligence officials. The arrival of high-ranking CIA figures, such as the deputy chief, suggests significant U.S. intelligence interests in the region. Is word for word the article that Zarq published earlier. So to backtrack here real quick, Zarq publishes this article on Medium, goes viral on Twitter. The Afghanistan outlet says, yeah, there's no evidence to support that. And they quote like where this originally came from. And in that quote, Zarq then goes back and says, listen, now it's picked up by an actual media outlet. Information laundering is probably the best way to put this. Now, the actual article here, as we go down just a little bit further, in a recent statement, Zabihullah Mujahideen, the spokesperson for the Taliban's Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, rejected reports of a U.S. military C-17 landing at Bagram airfield. Mujahideen called these reports propaganda aimed at misleading the public. He emphasized that the Taliban would not permit any foreign military presence in Afghanistan, stressing that there was no current need for such presence. Mujahideen's comments came in response to widespread report and rumors circulating on social media that some media outlets suggesting that U.S. forces were returning to Bagram. He categorically denied these claims, reinforcing the Taliban's stance on sovereignty and non-interference. Quote, such an event is impossible. So now we're kind of at this point where it's like, I don't know, pick your poison, right? We've got the Taliban spokesperson, probably not a good dude. I don't know that we really want to trust him 100%. But we get to compare what he's saying against this Zarq Shabab with a suspended account or an account that doesn't exist who's quoting himself back in these same articles. So look, to be fair, I thought we should probably go into this a little bit deeper. The problem with X, frustration with that site, is regular outlets go over there and they pick this stuff up and they just run with it. So here we've got the Independent in the UK. Mysterious U.S. military flight to Afghanistan sparks speculation about Bagram Air Base. What they should have led with is that flight didn't actually happen. And if you get down in this article far enough, you get through, again, all of these claims from the, according to local media reports, sparked speculation about renewed American control, all of this stuff about that. Then you get down here a little bit further, and we actually have somebody who's tracking the C-17 data. I'm going to pull this one up because it's a little bit bigger and easier to see. Where he says, yeah, C-17 didn't land in Afghanistan. The flight they're talking about, that didn't even land. It did some weird stuff in Tajikistan up north. Maybe that's noteworthy, probably to some people. But it didn't land. So now we have the Taliban's word against this random journalist's word, but now the C-17 wasn't there the day that he said it was there. We can go one step further, and this is where I think it really all kind of comes together. Intel Schizo over on X pulled a bunch of satellite imagery. And if you remember, let's go back to the original article here. It said the C-17 Globemaster have landed at the base carrying military vehicles, equipment, and senior intelligence personnel. So we already just walked through how a plane supposedly appears to not have landed in Afghanistan, which is a bit of a problem. But now if we're looking at satellite imagery, we should be able to see something, right? A C-17 can carry a lot of stuff. So maybe we'd get lucky and actually see a satellite picture of that C-17 on the tarmac. Of course, didn't get that lucky, maybe because it wasn't ever there in the first place. But even if we didn't get it just at the right time, you have to expect that we'd probably see some change in the equipment on the ground. And as Intel Schizo posts here, he runs through all these different pictures, and you can spend time kind of digging into each one of these. They are the exact same. You can see some things around the edge changing to where it's definitely different dates. But the course here from March 31st to April 5th, no change. Again, this is the time period that the article says that U.S. C-17s were bringing equipment and vehicles into Bagram. But they're not there, is the problem. And it wasn't just him. We even had some imagery here posted by MT Anderson on April 7th, confirming that as well. So just yesterday. So this article that, again, going back to the original source here, or not the original source, but the first one I saw, I've confirmed the article's content and that the deployment will be announced publicly later this week. Look, we might at some point in the future do something like this. I don't want to write it off entirely. I don't know. There are strategic interests in the region. I would argue that taking over Bagram probably is not in our best interest right now. And the Taliban certainly don't want that to happen, but maybe something like this does happen down the road. The problem that we have here, and hopefully I did a decent enough job kind of walking through this, is all of the sources they're pointing to can be discredited. I mean, this didn't happen. This plane wasn't there. There's nothing on the ground. And the source article here cites himself back and forth, which, that's a little, maybe I should start citing myself. I might do that, add some credibility. I feel like it might have the opposite effect. But either way, as far as I can tell right now, no, the United States is not going back to Afghanistan. We've certainly not begun the process of C-17s landing at Bagram, unloading military supplies. But every one of these links that I just ran through will be in the description below. It'd be worth keeping an eye on for sure, but pretty sure that's where everything sits right now. But thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.